Arcane is one of those shows with the exceptional ability to make you hate its mistakes. Not because they are terrible and over the top and make you want to jump off a bridge, but because if they were not there, the show would be one of the greatest of all time. Arcane came out about a year ago at the time of writing this video, and at first I was extremely skeptical to watch it because of all the hype it generated. I can't remember the last time a show garnered that much attention over such a short period of time. Oh wait, I can, and it's on the same fucking platform too. I'm gonna start thinking that it's their business strategy. After a lot of time, and a single viewing of Minions: The Rise of Gru, I knew it was time to have a go at it. Here's the gist of my opinion. It was good. That's already worth something, because the company behind this intellectual property, Riot Games, has never produced anything I found engaging or worth my time. I despise League of Legends, I think Runeterra is fine at best and monotone at worst, and I think Valorant is a waste of time. Their popularity is due to the same thing that I consider to be their downfall. It's generic, meaning anyone at any point can pick it up and understand it without a problem.
It's a constant load of bullshit!
It's not to say that generic means bad. A game like Minecraft is perfectly generic and yet is a good contender for greatest game of all time. It's that in this case, the fact that it's generic exacerbates the fact that they're bad games. This is all to say, if someone like me, who hates this company with a passion, can come here and tell you that this show is great and you should watch it, then just imagine what someone who loves this company will tell you. They'll go over why this show is a masterpiece. They'll go over why this show is subversive. They'll go over why this show changes everything. I'm here to ask you to think critically about it and what I have to say, not to tell you what to think. Let's start with the technical problems. There's actually not much to talk about here. I only have minor gripes with a handful of things. There really isn't much the show is doing out of line, but one thing that did take me aback was the voice acting. If you're going to be spending anywhere between $60 to $80 million for each episode, I think it's fair to say that you want the best possible take for each line, especially if you're going to be spending over 6 years in production. And yet we have lines where characters either seem to display no emotion or barely any at all. It's a real shame too, because sometimes everything is just right. The pace, the emotion, the delivery, everything is there at one moment.
I can help them.
And then you get scenes where Vi speaks with the most neutral delivery in the entire show.
I can fix this. You can't. This is how things are, how they've always been. I was so stupid to think it could change.
There must be something else we can do. Some other way. We'll make a new plan. We have to try.
We tried, okay? It wasn't enough. Top side and bottom, oil and water, that's all there is.
Speaking of sound, another technical problem I can't get my head around is the sound mixing. There are moments in the show where the layering of sounds works splendidly, and some others where everything is muddy and incomprehensible.
Search them.
Go ahead, idiots. We got nothing.
You need to hide those crystals.
Yeah, no shit.
That part is pretty frustrating because it seems like a glaring oversight. Even someone with a shitty pair of headphones or even a phone speaker could have told the sound engineers that something wasn't working. And finally, the last thing I have to say about the technical aspect of the show has to do with the animation. Now don't get me wrong, Arcane has some of the best 3D animation of any media out there at the time of writing this video. I mean, just look at this. But one thing keeps annoying me and I can't ever unsee it, and it's the hands. It's like the palm area of the model is rendered correctly, but the fingers are missing like 3 or 4 shaders. It's just weird. Everything has this noticeable aesthetic except the fingers of characters, which look completely out of place and kinda cartoony. It's like they were trying to go for something along the lines of cell shading, but it's just rough around the edges. I think you understand what I mean by hating Arcane's mistakes. They're things that make you double check or go back and rewind or stop to analyze what's being displayed. It takes you out of the experience and its immersiveness, and by God is it able to immerse you in this world like very little shows can. It's just unfortunate that it trips over itself like that. The bulk of my problem with Arcane lies not with the technicality of the show, but rather its narrative and how it executes on it. There's this video by Schnee where he talks about Arcane and gender, link in the description, where he speaks of women characters being well written, and I agree with that part, but I can't come to agree with his second conclusion, which is that it's original. There's this amazing video by Honorable Froggery, link in the description, that speaks of Arcane and its influence, the Greek tragedy. I won't repeat what's being said in the video, but I want you to pay attention to this. Arcane is very, very much like the story of Antigone by the Greek writer Sophocles. The resemblance runs deep, to the point where the characters themselves possess much of the same traits. They are mainly different in how their environment has shaped them as people. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's important to understand that Arcane is not a show that reinvents the wheel. It just makes a really good wheel. So when the show decides to make several throwbacks in a row to events we've just seen happen, it gets old really fast. The descent into madness and transformation of Powder into Jinx is also something that I feel gets old really fast. We can separate the show into 3 acts, each 3 episodes long, and from my standpoint, Jinx had a manageable level of crazy by Act 2. The writers decided to ramp it up to 11 for Act 3, and I think it's to the detriment of the show because Jinx becomes less and less humane, meaning we can relate less and less with her. This wouldn't necessarily be a problem if it wasn't for the fact that the entire show revolves in one way or another around the character of Jinx. The best way that I can put it is this. After Act 1, Jinx becomes a tolerable character in a story that relies on her for progression. She's not even one of the best characters in her own show. Victor, Caitlyn, and Echo are all characters that I believe to be better written than Jinx. If they had kept her insanity manageable, like in the beginning of Act 2 for the rest of the show, I think it would have made for much better writing down the line. A direct example of this choice the writers made backfiring is in the final scene of the show. There's a moment where Jinx menacingly drops a couple of lines about paying Caitlyn a visit and comes with a silver platter and bell. Vi, who's been doing nothing but trying to understand and get her sister back, gets scared shitless when she opens the platter, only to reveal it's a cupcake and that she's
Not that crazy.
Having seen Jinx knock out her own sister unconscious and put her in an impossible dilemma, we know for a fact that she is evil. She's gone completely fucking mental. The way that I see it, I don't think there was any way for Vi to possibly make her sister choose Powder over Jinx. The lesson that's being taught here is literal, unimaginative, and lacks nuance. It's on the nose. The lesson we get from Jace and his ascension to power is on the nose. Yeah, okay, cool. Ultimate power ultimately corrupts. This is not to say that Jace has a bad story though, but I think it should have gone in another direction. His dichotomy with Victor and the whole sequence between him with Mel and Victor with the hex core was some real cinema. There was some genuine artistry there, and it's unfortunate that it went the way it did. The lesson we get from Vi and Caitlyn is on the nose. The rich girl can't be with the poor girl. The class difference is too big. They're from different backgrounds altogether. One has more culture than the other. One of them has had some real tough breaks. They eat spaghetti together. holy shit, it's Lady and the Tramp all over again. I think you're able to understand what I mean by now. It's not that Arcane is necessarily a bad show, and Jesus Christ is it nowhere near as terrible as some people make it out to be, it's just that it lacks something to push it over the edge. I've talked a bit before about how I rank stuff out of 10, but I think it's worth it to elaborate just a smidge on that. A 5 out of 10 is the middle of the road. It's neither good or bad, just completely average. A 6 out of 10 does some things right, but has some major setbacks, and I don't see any way it can be fixed without scrapping the whole thing. A 7 out of 10 is okay. The good outweighs the bad, but I don't see any way it can be improved without scrapping the whole thing. An 8 out of 10 is just fine. The good outweighs the bad, and there are some clear ways it could be improved. A 9 out of 10 is great. The good far outweighs the bad, and there are only a small amount of things that need improvement. A 10 out of 10 is perfection, and yes, it does exist, and it exists in many shapes and sizes. You can reverse that to get my general idea for the 1 through 4 out of 10. With this in mind, I think it's fair to say that Arcane is a solid 8 out of 10. It's on the verge of greatness, but it's not quite there yet, and I think its score on IMDb is pushed by people who really like the universe in which the story takes place. That's not a completely bad thing. It means that a lot more people will be watching this show, but if you are to recommend it to some friends or family, perhaps don't sell it as the most amazing 3D animated experience of all time. That title belongs to Minions.